we'll go through that with evaluations, 2 to 3 minutes. And the speaking portions, as far as I know, are all 5 to 7 today, but we'll let the evaluators correct that if necessary. And now
can Beth show the cards? Great.
Okay, so
I didn't see it yet.
Yeah, let's get Mom to show the examples. Do you have,
This is green.
there's green.
Right.
It says timer
Okay.
Beth. Okay, put the light on over there, I think, too.
It's
Okay. Okay.
This is green.
Okay.
Pretend it's green. It looks green to me. Okay, and this is yellow.
Okay, that's good. With these.
And this is red.
Excellent.
We'll see how it goes. I'm back in my mom's living room again this morning, so we'll see what we can muster. Okay. After the timing roll, our gesture master is another volunteer, our newest member, Alexis. Alexis, do you know your role as gesture master? You could explain it to us.
I'm not quite sure. I believe I'm evaluating hand gestures and body language. Is this only for the speakers, or?
It can be anyone who speaks. It's a bit challenging in this role. At least most of us have our names written on our screen and our faces, so you can decide how much you'd like to report at the end. But it definitely focuses on the speakers if you want to start there. Okay. All right. Awesome, Alexis. Thank you so much. And next we have our quizmaster today is Jill Roaring. Jill, will you share with us the quizmaster role? I know that's new for a lot of other clubs. That's something we borrowed from a club elsewhere too.
My job this morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests, is to test your listening skills. I will be asking a series of questions at the end to find out if you have been listening or if you've been ignoring. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Not ignoring. Thank you very much, Jill. And our general evaluator is Eric. Eric, are you on there? Or he'll have a chance to jump back in later.
I'm here.
There he is. There he is. What's your role, if you could share with us that today, Eric, as GE?
Yes. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and esteemed guests, my job as general evaluator this morning is to evaluate the evaluators and to evaluate the Toastmaster of the day, and I will report back when called upon to do so. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator. Eric. And I think it's time to move right along. Did I forget anyone here? I think we got everyone. Let's move right along into our table topics portion, which is the off-the-cuff speaking. And Mark, let's really slam this in and try 4 contestants today, if you can. All right, Mark?
All right, thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our many guests. Good morning. There's already been a lot of discussion about how we run table topics at AM Lockport, so I feel like my job is basically done. I might just sit back and see if somebody else will ask the questions. But as it has been said before, this is the opportunity for now 4 lucky contestants to show us their ability to speak extemporaneously. As it's been also stated, we are running it 1 to 2 minutes with a 15-second buffer, and to win at AM Lockport, you must use the word of the day and make time, little added challenge. So we'll start off our first contestant. We'll start with someone from AM Lockport, shall we? Larry Eggert. Clearly, we are in a very challenging time. Yet, some like to find silver linings, hidden blessings and things. As we're living in this social distancing world where we're quarantined, has anything been a positive for you? Has there been a positive takeaway? Larry Eggert. You need to unmute, Larry.
Oh man, I just wasted 15 seconds. We're in liminal times, and it's been an interesting time. Some of the Silver linings. Well, number one is I'm learning technology like never before. Thanks to Larry McKenzie giving me a lesson on Zoom and other things. So that's a positive. Being closer to my wife is another positive. We found that we can live together in close proximity and not kill each other. That's a plus, I think. Getting to know people via telephone, which is interesting. I'm a person that's kind of visual. So when I talk to people or communicate, I always like to see them. And I'm learning that how to do that remotely through telephone or sometimes through Zoom. Some other positives. I'm going to be a grandfather again. That's a positive. Not that that's related to this, but another girl. So be our second granddaughter. We found out yesterday. It was pretty exciting. And you know what? Just to close, I think it's you learn to adapt. And I think each of us have done that in our own way. And I know my wife and I have done it in our way. And it's good to know that we can adapt in some pretty serious times. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Larry. All right, our next contestant this morning, I would like to ask our guest Joel, formerly of Lockport, currently of Baltimore. Have you been working from home? What are your experiences working from home? Do you like it? Would you like to do it? Would you like to continue doing it? Or have you had enough of it? Joel.
Thank you, Table Topics Master, for that question. I have been working from home, but I've also been going to the office. Fortunately, I live about 2 miles from my office, door to door. So going into the office is not something that has been too much of an inconvenience. I work in data management for schizophrenia research. And I should actually clarify that my commute is normally 2 miles door to door, but two of the 3 entrances have been closed to my office. So I have to go probably 3 miles or 4 miles to get into my office because I have to go through a check where they check my temperature to make sure that I am not ill. It's been an interesting experience. I think that I have a new appreciation for going into the office because it's a little bit tiring to not see my coworkers on a daily basis. On the other hand, I do have to connect to my computer remotely at the office. So there have been a few times where I unexpectedly had to go into the office because I was trying to log out of my computer, but instead shut it down. So in these liminal times, I am certainly developing a new perspective on working from home and from going into the office. And once things get back to normal, I am going to be more excited about going to work every day. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Joel. Let's go back to AM Lockport, shall we? I would like to ask Tracy Farrell. Tracy, this just in, the pandemic is over. You're free and clear. You are unleashed. You can do whatever you want. Take us through that day. What are you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The pandemic is over. You know, where do you begin? Because so many things have happened. These are liminal times, and I have been thriving. I used to think I was an extrovert, but I found out I am an introvert, and I really do enjoy working by myself and having that relaxing time where I can go into the office when I want to, come home, work, go back into the office. So I don't have the time limits. I've been working in the morning, but I also work later into the night, and I'm not confined to that 9 to 5 job right now, and I'm thriving in it. As soon as I start back, it's going to be the rat race again. And I'm going to start working. I have to make sure I'm there at 8:30 in the morning. And that's always a rush for me because I have to do I'm doing laundry and I'm getting the dishes done and everything else before I leave the house. Getting in, rushing in at 8:30. And then I'm also trying to get everything done at work, making sure everything in my office is going on. Right now in our office, nothing has slowed down. You would be surprised how many houses are still selling. I don't know how these people are buying houses since they can't go look at them, but we have just as many deeds. We have a large project going on with our equity improvement project. Our office is taking on the refuse billing. So a lot more is actually happening in my office, getting that done. And then at night, getting back into my routines with going out to dinner with my friends and back into my social groups, working with a lot of the committees that I've been into, Rotary Club and so forth. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm kind of excited, but I did enjoy my pandemic times. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
All right, thank you, Tracy. Last but not least, our fourth and final contestant today, I would like to ask Sue from Wisconsin. Sue, challenging times lead to often changing perspectives. Sometimes we experience epiphanies and we realize what's truly important. We've seen examples of this where we're going to great lengths to honor the real heroes, the essential workers, the healthcare workers in particular. So Sue, tell us about any changed perspectives you've had, any epiphanies you've experienced during this time.
Mr. Table Topics Master, thank you for that question. I was listening so hard, so nervous about having to speak that I'm like, oh my gosh, think of something, think of something. I guess this isn't an epiphany really, but it maybe just re-emphasizes how important my grandchildren are to me. For example, on Mother's Day, there's two girls, their mother drove them over to where I live, and they camped out in the back of their vehicle with the hatchback open. And I sat in a chair 6 feet from them, and we spent 2.5 hours with a lovely conversation. So maybe my epiphany is that we can make things happen, find new ways to make things happen, because we're social distancing doesn't mean we can't connect or even see each other. Creativity would be my liminal comment that that we can use during these kinds of hard times. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Sue. Great job by all of our contestants today, members and guests alike. I'll call for a couple of reports. Samir, how did Liminal do?
Okay. Am I on?
Oh, okay. I said I had Joel, Tracy, and Sue all using the word. So it's pretty good.
Okay, Joel, Tracy, and Sue, but not Larry, correct?
Yeah, I didn't hear Larry use it. I don't know if I missed it, but.
Okay. Yeah. And then timers report. Beth, how did we do on time?
Well, I had a little problem to begin with, but I do know Larry made time. I'm just not exactly sure what his time was, but Joel was at 1:40, Tracy was at 2:10, and Sue was at 1:22. So I believe Sue is short time, correct? Qualified with a buffer. Oh, qualified with a buffer. So everyone qualified.
Okay, thank you. So please cast your vote for either Sue, Joel, or Tracy. Madam Toastmaster.
Can you mute yourself? Okay. All right, everyone put a vote in. Okay. Let's roll right into our speaking portion, since we will have 4 speakers, and the lineup order is, to clarify, Jen as our first speaker, our second speaker will be Ryan, our third speaker will be Margot, and our fourth speaker will be Len. So our first speaker is Jen, and she will be evaluated by Deb. Deb Franco, will you please share with us Jen's goals today?
Sure. Jen is actually speaking from level 2 of the visionary communication, an introduction to Toastmasters mentoring. Well, Jen will be clearly defining how Toastmasters envisions mentoring, and she will also share an aspect of her previous experience as a protege. The speech is about a time when the member was a protege, and she'll discuss any aspects of her experience. And what we're not looking for is a report on the content of the mentoring project, but just her experiences.
Okay, and the time is 5 to 7 minutes, correct? And I do have all titles today. Thank you, Deb. I do have all of our titles today. And Jen Zapla, Unintentional Mentors, Jennifer Zapla.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. What is a mentor? A mentor is someone with experience, a trusted advisor that helps us grow. Now, I don't know about you, but throughout my life, I've had many mentors who were unintentional. As a kid, I used to think of my parents as actually negative role models. They were all the things I didn't want to be. I imagined that they were put in my life to be examples of things for me to avoid. There was one time that my mom had left me at the dentist's office to get my wisdom teeth out. My wisdom teeth. She left me. After I had finished the procedure, I sat in the waiting room for over an hour waiting for her. And I was so angry and uncomfortable. But see, what I didn't realize at the time was that she was juggling a lot of other things. She had returned to work to finish her day. She was trying to pay our bills as a single mom. Now, I've had a lot of bosses over the years, and there were many of them who I did not think exemplified the leadership characteristics that a leader should exemplify. I had one particular boss ask me, after several reorgs had taken place in our office, who my direct manager was. I was completely flabbergasted. This was a man I had been having weekly one-on-ones with for months. He was my direct manager. But what I didn't realize at the time was that when he had taken on that management role, it was with the assumption that he was going to be managing up with processes, not down with people. And you see, all of those reorgs that had taken place had been just as tumultuous for him. So recently, I want to share with you my experiences in traveling to India. I had the opportunity to observe a cultural phenomenon that left me perplexed, but it also gave me a lot of perspective and altered the way that I saw things. You see, what I found was that culturally in India, people do not respond in a direct nature to a direct question. So if you ask something like, do I need to check out before or after? They'll respond with a platitude rather than yes or no. This was frustrating for me throughout my trip, and I couldn't quite understand why this was the case. But one thing that I did come to realize was that while they responded in this way to those direct questions, Indian people wear exactly who they are in everything they do. In the way that they dress, another Indian person will recognize the region they're from. They might recognize whether they're married or widowed from jewelry that they wear or other cultural things that they do. Their name may indicate their religion. And so I saw there was this flip side, this paradoxicalness to their and ours. It was like one side of the coin versus the other. You see, in the US, we use directness to identify ourselves as individuals, while often blending in with the larger group. Whereas in India, they do the exact opposite. They're so transparent about who they are in the way that they are perceived. And yet, all of that amenableness is about making you a part of a group. It's about welcoming you. This has given me a lot of food for thought over the last couple of months, coming back to the US during this pandemic. See, we find people who show who they are on the outside to be deeply uncomfortable in our culture. Even when you look back to the 60s, the hippies, people found that uncomfortable. In the US, in the recent months, there have been a lot of changes. There have been political dichotomies that are endlessly frustrating. Now, I'm sure most of you see this happening in our time. Regardless of which side you're on, there are endless frustrations. You may even think the other side isn't fit to tie their own shoes. But you see, there is something more to it. All of those expectations that you have for other people about how they should behave and how they should think is a lack of empathy and perspective. You're only seeing the world through your closed-minded, selfish vantage point. You're not seeing how much more there is. There's nuance. There's not a black and white picture. All of those frustrations, they're your roadblocks. That anger and blame is holding us all back. We can stop. We can listen. We can learn. We don't have to agree with another perspective, but what we have to realize is that while our individual experiences color our views of the world, deep inside, we may all be the same person with just small glimpses of all there is in the world. It is hard to admit that you don't know best. Even when you're an expert at something, you can't possibly know millennia of history that's come before you to contribute to the moments that each of us have in our world. So today I'm going to ask you to take a step back when you're feeling angry and frustrated, and ask yourself, what is it that you're failing to see? This resistance is your roadblock. There's a lesson waiting for you in each of your unintentional mentors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Our second speaker today is Ryan. He'll be evaluated by Dave Licata. Dave.
Good morning, Madam Toastmaster. How are you today?
Doing well, thanks, Dave.
All righty. I got in contact with Ryan, so I do have some background. He's going down that pathway again. Here's to use a story to aid his speech. So his goal is going to be to deliver a speech that is really more of a story. It is 5 to 7 minutes, Madam Timer. And we just know that he's going to be well organized because he's Ryan. Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dave. I'd like to introduce Ryan Flore. Every good story starts with Ryan Flore.
Every good story starts with the perfect camera angle. I jest, but in a Zoom meeting, it tends to be one of the most important and underlooked factors. So today I wanted to make sure I had it correct. You see, when we start to move about and connect with each other, we start to learn things. People don't remember you as a person. People remember things about you. It's always important to make sure that not only are your first impressions positive, but that they remember positive things about you. See, I have two uncles. For the sake of this story, we'll call them Uncle Joe and Uncle Bud. And both Uncle Joe and Uncle Bud were alive and well during the Vietnam era. Uncle Joe was drafted, but due to scoliosis, never was able to join. Uncle Bud, for better or worse, was drafted, but through a little bit of positioning, goodwill, good luck, and probably a handshake or two behind the scenes, was able to get the position of his choice as a fighter pilot. Uncle Bud would fly missions for 23 years for the US Navy before he retired in the early 90s. You see, throughout people's history, they go through many experiences, and Uncle Joe and Uncle Bud are no different. You see, Uncle Joe had the experience of Vietnam of feeling left behind and left out, and Uncle Bud felt involved. But now, as we sit in the 2020s, as we start to reflect back on our lives before us, the curious piece about Uncle Joe and Uncle Bud are the number of stories that Uncle Joe has about Vietnam and the silence that emanates from Uncle Bud. See, Uncle Joe, despite never having been to Vietnam, had seen friends and family leave and not come back. Uncle Bud saw it firsthand. The silence from Uncle Bud is deafening. But I want to focus on Uncle Joe and why Uncle Joe continues to tell stories of things that never happened. You see, when we connect through storytelling, we want somebody to remember us for a key moment. And during Vietnam, when you're somebody that never made it there, there's a panging guilt, at least in the case of Uncle Joe, of what could have been different, of I should have been there. And Uncle Joe's stories, year after year, Thanksgiving after Thanksgiving, have gotten more and more exotic. You see, he was there now. And he knows people that were there. And so he takes their stories, implants himself within them, and shares them around the table. I'd like to bring on my second point about storytelling and connecting with storytelling at this point, and that's your audience. Everybody can picture themselves again, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, or another family holiday that you gather on, you notice that there's one person that always captivates the kids. They're sitting around them in the rocking chair, and all the kids are staring wide-eyed at all the stories. And then there's the other person that's sitting in the living room, sitting back on the couch, relaxing with a cigar, and they're being asked by the adults for a story. And therein lies the difference between Uncle Joe and Uncle Bud. You see, Uncle Joe, all the kids flocked to Uncle Joe. Everybody wanted to hear the last time he was there and what happened and all of his wise fish tales. The kids loved the creativity behind it. But as Uncle Bud sat in the living room, the adults went after the truth, the wisdom, and the lessons learned of those that have experienced. And that brings me to my final point. When we're connecting and we're networking and we're telling stories, embellishment and fishtails have no point. The liminal part of your story should be truthful, honest, and perhaps humorous, because you want people to remember that story. But there's one thing that's for sure when it comes to networking. Lies are much harder to remember than truth. So as you go about and you connect with people, be grateful for the stories that you do have and the experiences that you've been through. Make sure that you're not Uncle Joe. Make sure that you take the wisdom of your experiences. Make sure that you take the challenges that you've been through and surpassed, and utilize those to tell your own story. Because although I've reread the same book once or twice, it was because it was really good. But I'm always looking for variety in my library, so I'd love to hear everybody's individual stories.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Okay. Marty just returned to this meeting. He is our third evaluator. Is Marty, can you hear us? Are you ready to jump in, or we could rotate here? Let's see. Marty. Marty, can you hear us? Marty?
I just unmuted you.
And he muted himself again.
Yeah. Keep talking, Marty.
No, he's muted again.
So that's something we need to exercise, because that's one of the biggest challenge of Zoom meeting.
It's sometimes one of us mutes and then the other unmutes right away.
Exactly, and it goes on 3-4 times. That's the unfortunate thing. You know, once is okay.
Okay, Marty, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay,
Are
thank
you ready to evaluate for Margot and introduce her?
Margot or Len?
It will be Margot.
Margot? Yes.
Okay, fantastic. You ready?
Yes, you want me to?
Yeah, roll right into it.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Thank you for your patience this morning with me. This morning, Margot is presenting from Pathways, Dynamic Leadership, Leading in Your Volunteer Organization. And this morning, Margot is going to share some aspect of her experience in an organization, a leader in a volunteer organization. And a couple of the things it lists, it says she had developed a succession plan to aid the transition of her role, her leadership role. And she had received feedback on her skills from members of an organization. The presentation, I believe, is a 5 to 7 minute.
Correct.
Okay, and I have the title if you need it.
I have the title too. Thank you so much, Marty. I will
Thank you.
introduce Margot Bittner. Here we bloom again. Margot Bittner.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
As most of you know, I'm a little active in the Niagara Wine Trail. Now, the liminal days of the Niagara Wine Trail were in 1999 when Niagara Landing opened. After Niagara Landing, we had Warm Lakes, and in 2002, they officially declared it the Niagara Wine Trail through legislation. In 2004, 3 wineries joined the wine trail, and they learned how to put up with me. It got to be holiday time. We were doing a wine trail event, which they had been doing for the last 2 years. And I said, why don't we punch it up? And the way I punched it up was I created a wine glass. And this wine glass has the names of all the wineries who were members at the time. I have to get it in front of the camera. And while they did that, we upped our attendance from 50 to 150 people. It was great. As time went on, we realized we had to let the world know that we were here. So we did a brochure with a funky map and a wonderful cover. As we worked through, they decided we needed somebody to sort of plan all these things, so they put me in charge of what they called the Events and Branding Committee, or Events and Brochure Committee at the time. So as more wineries joined the wine trail, we added more wineries' names to the wine glasses. We even had to get a bigger wine glass at the time too. It was kind of funky. As we grew, we went from 2 events, one for holidays and one for Valentine's Day, to an event every month. It got to the point where our brochure actually had all these events listed. We did one for Mardi Gras, we did Valentine's Day, we did Lucky Charms for St. Patrick's Day, and on it went. And as we grew, we added an event a month, we were adding more wineries, and we soon were up to about 10 wineries, which is when we added the bane of our existence, Hollow Wine, the murder mystery. Now, when you get a group of about 10 people, some people get along and some people don't. But I'm chugging along, doing my thing. I'm the train going down the track, getting everybody on board. Let's get everybody in our wineries. And there were some groups that didn't like events. And some less than kind things happened. So I decided maybe I should take a break from this and let somebody else did it. And so I did. I stood back for about a year. And after about 8, 9 months, they asked me to take it back. I took it back. The wine trail kept growing. We added more events. And then we added some other things. And we said, how else can we market our wine trail to reach out to the entire world? And we came up with a magazine. And we actually had a magazine that we did twice. Every winery had a page. There were articles about similar wineries or tasting room doors. And we tried to be a little more creative with it. And yet we're still reaching out to everybody else. Now the wine trail is now up to 21 people. So we decided, there's a so for you, Mr. Master. We'd split the events and the branding into 2 different committees. And what happened when we did that was we couldn't manage our budget well. Because when you advertise, well, is it branding or is it advertising? And the 2 chairs tried to work it out, but that was 2 meetings a month. So we decided to join them back together. Now they've been putting up with me again, trying to get everything going. We're having weekly Zoom meetings. We're changing things over. And every year when it comes up, I offer this committee to somebody else. Everything's done. We have Cate to run the wine trail. The events are all laid out. Everything's ready. Somebody else should be able to take it. And about 2, 3 years ago, I took a breath and I said, why don't we just slow down? Why don't we have fewer meetings? Let's see what happens. Well, when we had fewer meetings, that was not a good change because we weren't communicating well. And because the members of the wine trail weren't communicating well, the events faltered. We didn't have the communication. One event came and it was supposed to be a wine and food pairing event, and 75% of the wineries all had dessert. Well, that's great, but we were supposed to be doing a meal. So somebody needed an appetizer, but by having a meeting, we could discuss and change it. So everybody picked a different meal. We actually did a survey, and if you were too late, you got assigned a course in the meal. So here I am after being open almost 16 years and running this committee, probably 13 of those 16 years. And I'm saying, who else can we get involved? And it's become more and more of a challenge. Now we've tried things on the wine trail where we just rotate the committee heads and you have to take it 1 year. That didn't work very well. Again, I've tried stepping out and stepping back in. So if you have suggestions on me on how to get other people involved, I'd appreciate it. But in the meantime, here's a opening up soon and having more people come in for tastings. Cheers.
Excellent job. Thank you very much. Thank you, Margot. And our fourth speaker today will be Len. Our fourth and final speaker will be evaluated by Tom Moran. Tom Moran, unmute yourself and please share with us your
Yes. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Len this morning will be doing a general purpose speech, which will be applied to his pathway goal of presentation mastery. I do not have the title for it.
I do.
But I do have the time for it. Madam Timer, or Mr. Timer, I forget who the timer is.
Madam.
Madam? Madam Timer. The time of Len's speech is 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, fantastic. And we have Len Thornton, a time to reflect. Len Thornton.
Thank you. Fellow Toastmasters, let me start off by apologizing to everyone, to the world in effect. I may have inadvertently caused this pandemic. I've been without a passport for about 7 years, and in January I renewed mine hoping to travel. I have not been overseas in quite a while. That may have been the thing that just put us over the edge, and fate had to intervene and keep me here. So I won't be traveling for a while. It doesn't look like Americans are going to be allowed anywhere for quite some time. This pandemic, this liminal change globally has been a period of great uncertainty for people. We are, as humans, creatures of habit. We have routines, things that bring us comfort. Even people with a very dynamic schedule, they have certain things they can count on. I don't think anybody will admit to missing their daily commute and the traffic, but that was a time to reflect for some people, and going somewhere else to work made us more diligent and more structured and more productive. Now, it's been said that with all the people working at home, they did a poll, about 22% love it, the introverts, and they can continue doing that and be productive. There's about 57% that say, no way, send me back to the office. I need to be around people, the water cooler, the whole scene there. One thing we have to remember, there's going to be permanent changes from this pandemic. Just as 9/11 made it so that we have to take our shoes off through security or security theater, and you can no longer see a friend off at the gate. Remember that, when you could actually follow somebody right to the gate and wave goodbye as their plane was taking off? Those days are over. And there will be significant similar repercussions in the post-COVID-19 world. So I thought to myself, there are opportunities here. And this isn't a lemonade out of lemon speech, but it's been a time with the change in everybody's schedule to step back and reflect and think, what was really important? Was that commute all that important? I for one, kind of like getting 1.5 weeks per gallon. Fantastic mileage on my vehicle. But I used to work from home anyway, about 3 days a week. So now maybe it's 4.5 days a week. It's a little bit different, but not traumatic for me. But I have had more time. We all say we're going to use it productively. We're not going to just Netflix all the time. And I haven't. I've been conscious of not doing that. I signed up for a virtual run. Of course, we can't run because somehow that can spread the disease. So they have virtual runs now. And I didn't sign up for a 5K. I signed up for a 500K. Now, relax, everyone. That's over 4 months, okay? It's the equivalent of running from Niagara Square to Albany. Some people are doing the 1,000K, where they're actually running the equivalent of Buffalo to New York City. So it amounts to about 22 miles a week, but I've actually been gearing up for it and running 4 or 5 days a week in it, and it feels good to start my day that way. And I have a very supportive group up in Newfane who like me, like to run just about every day. So this pandemic has brought a lot of financial challenges. Some people, it hasn't changed their financial situation at all. The essential workers may be a little bit busier and feel threatened by the possible contagion. And anybody that's going through New York State unemployment, you have my sympathy there. I've heard some terrible stories. But there are positives here, and we need to look at those. We run at a frantic pace all the time, and how many times in our past, if we look at our past lifestyle, have we found ourselves not being in the moment, just going from one thing to the next and always thinking about the next thing on our checklist that needs to be done, the next project we're behind on, or making a to-do list, or going here, going there, the time spent traveling, the time not spent doing important things with friends, with family, actually working on ourselves, improving ourselves. I've done a little work on an online course, nowhere near as much as I should have, but I'm trying to find a new balance here. Because as I said, these changes, a lot of them will be permanent. I invite everyone to reflect on things in your life which seemed really important in the past, but maybe weren't so important now that you've been without them for a couple months. Evaluate your new lifestyle and pick and choose what you bring back in it when the clouds are lifted, society opens up, and we go into the new social distancing future. Incidentally, I've always been a little bit of a germaphobe. I never liked touching door handles, so that's not a problem for me. I always roll my sleeve up and grab it that way. It's paying off. I would also caution everyone, this pandemic is not a one-off thing. It wasn't a question of if it was going to happen, it's a question of when it was going to happen. But other problems have not gone away. We face a troubled world, and I really feel for the next generation. We have the threats of still nuclear proliferation, massive earthquakes. There's a huge fault off of the Washington and Oregon coast that could send a multiple 100-mile-per-hour wave tsunami into the coast. We have, oh yeah, global warming. Yeah, that hasn't gone away. It's actually been a little bit better since the pandemic, but we've got a lot of work to do there. Biological weapons. I don't believe the false narrative being pushed that this was brought upon us intentionally, but there are people working on biological weapons. And deepfake facilitated disinformation campaigns. You're going to see ads over the next 6 months that will literally be putting words in people's mouths, and they will look convincing to many. And many people won't take the time to discern whether it's real or fake. The worldwide political and economic disruptions from this pandemic will be lasting, and they will be severe. It could change a lot of governments. So to close off, I implore everybody, turn off the 24/7 cable news cycle, step back, look at your life today, look at your life in the past, take time to reflect. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Len. May I please? Okay. There's a 30-second buffer for all speakers. My mom, Beth, will give a timer's report now.
Unfortunately, if there's only a 30-second,
Can they hear you?
30-second leeway, two of our speakers were disqualified. Jen went 7 minutes 56 seconds, and Len went 7 minutes 39 seconds.
Okay.
So Ryan and Margot both were within the qualifying times. Ryan was 6:30, Margot was 5:27.
Could everyone hear that? So Ryan and Margot qualified. So Larry will set up our polling for that. But unfortunately, Jen and Len went over today. Let's roll. You'll choose between Ryan and Margot. And We'll roll right into our evaluating portion and begin with Deb. Deb, will you please give us your evaluation of Jen's speech?
Yes, thank you, Kate. Jen, as usual, we love hearing you speak. You're always interesting, and you bring a lot of different thoughts to Toastmaster of your subjects. And I loved hearing about the differences between India and here and some of the things that they do. And it was tough to kind of get your protege. You talked a little bit about your mom, and you talked a little bit about India and what you're learning through life, but not really focusing on a actual mentoring experience as being a protege. And I think that's what I was looking for a little bit. There were a lot of pauses. Usually you don't pause as much. So it was tough. The pauses were a little bit interrupted the flow of the speech. However, during the speech, it was kind of fun knowing the differences of how the Indian culture is. I love hearing about different cultures. I was excited to hear about when you started talking about how the Indian culture, how they would express themselves in dressing and different things. And there was one that I was like, oh, tell me more, tell me more. So I'd love to hear another speech about that. And your eye contact was very good. Your vocal, although with Zoom, it's kind of tough because you're really not looking at anywhere or anything. And it's really tough to get the eye contact, but it seemed to be going well. Your voice was clear. Your movements were good, especially at the end. Your movements were very, very good. I loved when you used your expression and emphasized your in your closing. And I just look forward to your next speech. Always, your speeches are good, and it's just a pleasure to see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deb. Thank you. Okay, our second evaluator today, evaluating Ryan, is Dave Licata. Dave.
Good morning, Madam Toastmaster. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome to our guests from all over. This is exciting when we got visitors from far off places. I'd like to salute Ryan this morning for his opening. He was quick on his feet. He was very engaging. He used a little humor. I also want to salute the fact that he stood up to deliver the speech. And the way he structured the speech invited us right in. He caught us, he captured us, he slowed the train down, and we got on board. Now, some of the things we can improve on, and these really aren't directed so much as at Ryan as the whole group, because once again, it's a question of distracting backgrounds. And I found his background a little bit too distracting, but the fault is within me. For the sake of conversation, the people who have attended the last 5 meetings here notice that I've got my blue curtains behind me, and that just worked out so swell that I have these patio doors with blue curtains. So I set up right there. Now, when he was done speaking, I think he should sign out with and this goes for the group as well because of Zoom. I think you should sign out with a big thank you, stand there for a moment, wait for the screen to change, and then hit your mute button. Because I found it a little bit distracting when immediately he was done and leaning right into the camera. But these are a traditional situation. If we were back at Tom's Diner, none of this would have applied. So every week that I have evaluator, every time I evaluate Zoom, it turns into a critique of television etiquette, but that's okay because we're going to be Zooming for a while, I'm afraid. I want to salute Ryan about family. If you're going to do storytelling, man, the family, what a resource. He nailed that, and that was a good way to bring us in. Family stories are just as good as stories from being in the Army or being in school. Anytime you're in a, what I call a foxhole situation, that's where the stories come from. Now, Ryan, it is very important that I invite you to the next Licata family gathering because I want you to repeat what you said this morning and tell my relatives that storytelling is very important. And maybe this will make the meeting, the picnics more pleasurable for me. Thank you very much, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dave. Our next evaluator, evaluating Margot, is Marty Johnston. Marty, are you there? Let me put you on unmute, and I know he was coming and going. Marty, there he is. Perfect. Marty, it's all yours.
Good morning. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
Morning. And good morning, Margot. Thank you for the opportunity to evaluate you this morning. What a timely speech. What a timely speech is. I look out the window from where I am right now. Things are definitely in bloom, and it was definitely perfect timing for your speech regarding the wine trail. Things are greening up here in Niagara County. Here we bloom again, the title. Margot, you shared your experience in a leadership role as a leader in the Niagara Wine Trail. I enjoyed the opening. You had a good pace, and I know that you had mentioned to me that was one of your speech goals is to work on your speech rate. But I felt that your pace was fine throughout the speech. And at one point, I honestly lost connection, but I feel that towards the middle and end of your speech, you had wrapped things up, and I think I have a pretty good understanding, so I can evaluate you from that point. I know that you mentioned a succession plan. You talked about getting other members involved and different things that you tried to get more people involved. What I would have just liked to have heard or possibly reiterate is I know you mentioned that AM Lockport members can send you information or suggestions. Possibly at the end, just reiterate that and mention, contact me by email with any suggestions to try to get as far as getting other members involved in the wine trail. That would be my main suggestion from what I did here. And I liked at the end how you had a toast. And I don't know if you had anything in the glass or not, but I thought it was very appropriate to have the toast. Possibly, if we were to give the speech again, take a sip of what you had or pretend you're taking a sip. Overall, Margot, I enjoyed your speech and I feel you reached your speech goal. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Marty. Our fourth and final evaluator today, evaluating Len, is Tom Moran. Tom. All right. Oh, you're muted, Tom. Hang on. Can you unmute yourself or?
Do it there.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. It was my pleasure this morning to find out that as speaker number 4, I was going to be evaluator number 4, and I was going to be evaluating Len. I've seen Len speak many times, and one thing that I have taken away from the speeches, the various speeches that Len gives, is the authentic nature of his speeches. Len does not come across as flip or whatever. Len has shown, and he showed it in this speech today, that in reflections he has taken a serious look. He's found himself in a position, which many of us have found ourselves, where we're not as comfortable or as routine as things always are for us. And he's taken this time to reflect on that and to prepare a speech and give it to us as to what he has found and what he's found that is important to him and how he is approaching this and the things that he is working on. I find this as maybe one of the earlier speakers talked about as a silver lining in all of this. We have had an opportunity to look at ourselves in a different perspective and reflect back on the things that are important to us and important as we go forward from this. Now, Len used a lot of different speech techniques. And one of the things that I like about Len is he uses a nice combination of words and word visuals when he speaks. And they, for someone who is listening to a speech, it makes me stop sometimes in the middle of the speech and think about actually what he has said. He talked about people who are the 22% who are introverted. And as he was talking about that, he talked about how things have changed after 9/11, how we have to take off our shoes and that sort of thing. And he snuck in a little ditty there called security theater is what he mentioned, which gives you a little insight into Len's thinking process and what he thinks of that specific thing. He talked about saving 1.5 weeks of 1.5 weeks per gallon. Now that was an interesting flip on mileage. So he's equated that to like a time period versus the number of gallons he has to put into his car. And he also, when he transitioned then and he talked about when the clouds are lifted. And he mentioned, and I think it's something that we don't think about at this particular point, but it's something we should, is that when the clouds are lifted, the troubles are not going to go away. They're still going to be there. There's still things that we need to do. And he ended with the title that he started out with, A Time to Reflect. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Tom. Are we ready for a timer's report? No.
All right, my timers report for evaluators. Jen came in, for Jen. Ed came in at 2:22, Dave was 3:07, Marty was 2:10, and Tom was 3:14. Hi, Tom. Go have yourself a piece of pie today.
All qualified.
All qualified, thank you.
Qualified with pie, huh?
Okay, thank you very much, Mom, our timer. Let's roll right into reports since it is towards the end of the meeting. I did, for guests, we typically do 3 table topic participants and 3 speakers. However,
Oops, sorry. Can you turn yours off, please? Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Here's yours off. Okay. So let's roll right into reports because of timing. Our master today is Mike Licata. Mike.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. We had many strong speakers this morning, but I did catch a few things. Alexis had 1 Jen had 1 pregnant pause during her speech. Ryan had 1 pregnant pause as well. Dave had 2 pregnant pauses. Margot had that so plus 2 more pregnant pauses. Marty, you did have a restart during your speech. And the last thing I want to caution today is we are using "and" a little bit more. It's kind of creeping into our lexicon again during these pandemic times. So I just encourage our members and our guests to take a pause and make sure that, there you go, I'm guilty of it as well. Take a pause while you speak to collect your thoughts and prepare for what you're going to say. And that is my report this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our grammarian is Cecilia. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Cecilia, and give us your report. Is she getting it? I'll unmute you, Cecilia.
Yeah,
Go
wait
ahead.
a minute.
There you go. Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning again. Good morning to our guests. I have some good news this morning. We are Toastmasters, so we pretty much know our grammar. And I learned a lot of interesting phrases this morning. I'll start with Mark, experience an epiphany, and silver lining. That phrase seems to be used a lot. That's one of my favorite phrases, silver lining. And Tracy, I think she said a lot more. I'm not sure about it. I'm not going to be nitpicking. And Jane, oh, Jane is, what can I say about Jane? I learned a lot. Flabbergasted, cultural phenomenon, respond with platitudes, paradoxicalness, maybe paradoxical, and amenableness, political dichotomous, and Ryan, this is something new for me, panging feeling. It starts with G, panging feeling. That means, instant or, so that's something, panging feeling, so that's something new to me. Lies are more harder than the truth. So that's from Ryan again. It was really, it was really, really good. Maybe I'll have a suggestion. Maybe it was exceptionally good. Len too, when the clouds are lifted, troubles are not going to go away, and time to reflect. Dave, it was tough to kind of get a protege. I'm not sure about this. Or very, very good. And Dave, quick on his feet. And Tom, again, she said silver lining. And who said security theater? I think from Lane. So that's about it for today. So I learned a lot.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. Nice job. Our gesture master today is our newest member, Alexis. What did you notice today, Alexis?
Okay. Okay, so I noticed, I wanted to say to Larry, congratulations, but the whole time you were speaking, your hand stayed right here by your face, and it was a little bit distracting. Tracy had a great use of hand gestures when speaking about being busy. And I wanted to say, I found the opposite about myself. I always thought that I was an introvert, and after this happened, I realized how much that I need that social interaction, and I want to be around people, and I want to talk to others. So I learned a lot about myself as well. Jen Zappa had very good use of hand gestures, lots of hand gestures, like that, crossing your hands over for emphasis and of the negative, and moving your hands in one direction, showing past tense. Ryan, you had a very good solid stance, solid hand gestures, especially in the beginning of your speech. Whatever you're selling, I'm buying it. Margot, loved your standing position. You leaned in for emphasis. You had, I like the use of your props. It really kept my attention. I'm a visual person, so that was great in your speech. And Len, I loved your message. I loved how comfortable you were. It's obvious that you have a lot of experience speaking on camera, because you had, even though you were sitting, you still had a lot of physical flow. You were just comfortable. It was perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alexis. I would like to say it's 8:27 now. typically we end at 8:30. If anyone does have to leave at 8:30, of course you may come and go as you wish. We will go over just a few minutes tonight, this morning, to wrap up with our final reports, etc. Our quiz master today is Jill Roaring. Jill.
All right, everybody. I have some interesting questions here. Joel, at the beginning, spoke of his commute. He had a 2-mile commute before. What is it now?
3 or 4.
3.
3 to 4 miles. What time will Tracy have to be to work in the future?
8:30. 8:30.
Which means she's going to be leaving our meetings early. Where did Jen travel most recently?
India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, she is quite the world traveler. From Ryan, what is harder to remember than the truth?
A lie.
Bye.
Oh, there's Paula.
Listening good. And how many wineries are on the trail now?
21.
Wow, everybody's done good today. I was going to ask about last 1.5 weeks per gallon, but that already got asked. Now for the bonus question. How many Baltimore Orioles were outside my window here?
5.
3.
3.
3? I don't have any.
I'll say. Oh, sorry. It's me. No, it's not me.
I think it's you. Okay. Can you hear me only? Please? Excellent. And our general evaluator today is Eric. Eric, do you have a brief general evaluation? And then we'll wrap up with Wordmaster.
Of course I do. Ma'am Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, guess what a fantastic meeting we had this morning as me doing multitasking between my job and this. But I would like to start with the Toastmaster, Cate. Cate, awesome job as always. You had the meeting down to a T. You handled the meeting so well, and I always give you a lot of props for that. So great job this morning, as always. To our evaluators this morning, Deb, you gave a great evaluation with Jen's speech. Smooth, but very well detailed. And I just have a bit of a suggestion for Jen, especially for Jen. Can we have a diary or a photo album of your amazing, cool adventures? I know I've seen one, but can you make a very bigger one? Because we would like to see that, honestly. Dave, is Dave on here? Yeah, Dave's on, okay. Dave, you gave pretty much well detailed with Ryan's speech this morning, and you had some good pointers for him. And Dave, let me know when your next family gathering is. I want to hear your family do some storytelling. Maybe I can give you more of a family advice, but all in all, that was good. Marty, good morning, Marty. I can see you now. Marty, very good detail with Margot's speech. I know we had some technical issues, but you know, we are in the new phase of technology and we know how to, you know, take care of it quickly. And I like how you're getting more members to help out with the wine trail, which that's always a fun part of getting out and having fun, is volunteering at the wine trail. And I like how you said how she raised a glass. And I think that we should all toast to one another and we'll get through this pandemic together. And last but not least, the great Tom Moran. Tom, nice background, first of all, of San Francisco. I know it looks like a bit cloudy, but good scenery in the background. I don't know if Cecilia got this in her grammarian report, but I had here authentic nature. That was a good word I liked. That was a good word. And like I said, the things have changed since all this been going on. And he did have a good combination of words. And Len, can you send me the link of how you're doing this whole marathon from Buffalo to Albany? Because it's something I think that's something I would like to do as a fellow runner brother here. I would like to try to take into that opportunity to do a big marathon or marathon, or whatever you want to call it. So all in all, great meeting by everyone today. And I'll hand back to our Toastmaster, Cate.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. Nice job. And you reminded me, we didn't even do a toast. He said he'd like to raise a toast. So since I know we're wrapping up right now, I'd like everyone to share a toast if you can. I'll try to remember that next time at the beginning. Our final report today is our word master, and then we'll hand it back to our president. Word master, Samir.
Yeah, so I guess I missed Larry actually using the word. He must have cut out, but Jen missed it, Ryan, Margot, and Len all used it, and then I did not hear it again. But again, I don't know if my technical difficulties impacted the ability to do that. So good job, everyone. Way to use a word to describe these liminal times.
Great
Thanks.
word for the theme of our lives right now. Thank you so much for that. I will hand over this meeting to Larry to close, to wrap up with our guests and our rewards, our honored guests. Thank you all for coming. I know some had to leave, but we appreciate you joining us anytime, whether it's our spring open house or anytime. Mr. President, Larry McKenzie.
Thank you very much, Cate. Great meeting this morning. You ran a very efficient meeting, and we want to thank you for that. And thank you for everyone who stepped up to take a role this morning. One of the things that I would like to do for our guests, we have a brand new member, Alexis, who's jumped right in and taken on some roles for the last few weeks in the virtual world. And today was the very first time that she did a report as a gesture master. And I thought you did an excellent job. And from all of us, a little kudos. Great job, Alexis. Keep up the good work. Also, I would like to thank all of our guests. But before I do that, what I want to do is every week we award ribbons to our winners. And we had a winner for our table topics. So drum roll, please. Here we go. The winner of our table topics was our guest, Joel. Joel, you are our table topics winner today. Congratulations, and thank you for joining us this morning, Joel. Also, our best evaluator this morning, all the way from Massachusetts, Mr. Tom Moran. Congratulations, Tom. Great job evaluating. And our speaker this morning, our top ribbon winner, here we go. It was Ryan was our top speaker today. Congratulations, Ryan. Yes. I also want to, congratulations to all of our ribbon winners. I also want to send out a very heartfelt thank you to Beth, first time being a timer this morning. I know that with using the virtual world, sometimes it can be challenging. I did also try to jump in and follow your lead by turning my backgrounds to different colors with you. So thank you, Beth, also for a great job. This morning, we had a couple of guests that are still with us, and I would like to ask them if they had anything they would like to say to the group before we do close our meeting. Joel, thank you for joining us this morning. How did you enjoy the meeting?
It was great to attend. Thank you so much for posting the invitation. I'm so excited that I had the opportunity to visit home. And the next time I am in Lockport on a Thursday, which hopefully shouldn't be too far away, I look forward to visiting your club, hopefully in person by that point. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joel. Matter of fact, we meet usually at Tom's Diner, which is right on locks 34 and 35 in downtown Lockport on Main Street. It's 11 Main Street. Also with us this morning, we have Paula Bass returning. Paula, thank you for joining us again this morning. How did you enjoy our meeting?
It's always a joy to come and be part of this group. Virginia looks like it's going to open at the end of the week. If I don't get a haircut pretty soon, I'm going to have to put a bag over my head. Never mind a mask. So hopefully Virginia will start to look better.
Paula, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to have you at our meetings in the mornings. We also have with us returning is David Jones. David from the Carolinas. David, thank you for joining us this morning. Are you still with us, David?
I think he left us.
All right. David had joined us again, and he's from the Carolinas. Wonderful to have him with us. I want to thank everyone for participating today. We do have a social hour tonight at 7 p.m. Cate will be our host for that, our weekly social hour at 7. And I do believe that we will resend the post for that if anyone would like to join us through email. Are there any announcements before we close the meeting this morning?
So Larry, is Charles Dickens' first time on Zoom with us? I'm not sure.
No, Charlie has joined us a couple of times in the past, but I did notice that he is with us this morning. And Mr. Deacon, thank you for joining us. And also we had Joe with us. Joe Budnick, I do believe, joined us. And we want to say hi to Joe also. So thank you, Joe, for joining us. The other thing that I wanted to make, oh, there he is. Hi, Joe. Thanks for joining in with our virtual meeting this morning.
You're welcome. Good to see everyone. I signed in late because my computer was having issues this morning, but hopefully everything will be back to normal soon. So everyone, please have a good day and stay safe.
Thank you, Joe. And also, Charlie, would you like to say anything to the group this morning? And I'll unmute you. There you go, Charlie. All right, Charlie, you're all set.
I don't, my own, I have to use my wife's computer, so my own, I don't have a camera or anything, so you don't see me, you just see a name usually, so.
Well, it is great to see you, Charlie. We actually can see you very nicely, and we thank you for joining us, and it's great to always see you at our meetings. So,
Larry.
Yes, David.
Did the lady from Wisconsin leave?
She had to leave. She had a board meeting this morning, and she jumped on at the very beginning.
I had a trivia question. I had a trivia question just for her.
Well, I will actually give you the information in regards to her meeting. You can jump on her meeting in Wisconsin and give them all the same question.
Oh.
You're very welcome.
Because I love this question. Yes.
Okay. Are there any other announcements before we close our meeting this morning?
I do, Larry.
I do, Eric. Or is it Eric? Yes, Eric.
It's me. District 65 speech contest is this weekend. Right now, I don't have the information yet. I will get in contact with PM.
I believe it's Saturday at 1 p.m.
Yes, I gotta get the Zoom link from her. When I do, I will send an email out to everybody and post it on Facebook.
Thank you very much for that, Eric. Also, we have to put together, and I know Cate is our immediate past president, will be helping to put together a slate of officers for our next Toastmaster year, which will begin June 30th. And if anyone is interested in stepping up to take part in the leadership role of AM Lockport, we will have a nice transition from our executive team this year and work with whoever would like to join us with that. So if you are interested in stepping up to take one of the positions, please reach out to Cate, and I'm sure that her and the nominating committee will be putting together a nice slate of officers for us. So without further ado, I'm going to close the meeting for this morning. Thank everyone for joining us. We are going to stay on for a few minutes for post toasties if you'd like to stay with us. But if you have to leave, we want to thank you for being part of our meeting. Have a great week. God bless you all.